Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for joining this lightning lesson focused on AEO. Today, we're talking about building your AI search strategy beyond SEO. My name is Mustafa. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, but this is more of a little bit about the course. We're going to talk about sort of like the transformation that we're seeing on organic search, content across social, earned, owned, what it means for AEO, measurement, and answer any questions that you may have. So a few things about me. Started my career as a search analyst at Microsoft a long time ago. But fast forward, I've worked at a bunch of companies, including some of the ones that you see here. More importantly, I'm the founder of Goody AI, which is one of the early full stack AEO platforms in the space. Started in 2024, early 2024, and actively serving some of the leading brands in the space. I would say retail, B2B SaaS, consumer, healthcare. Publishing and a bunch of other industries. Also, the founded the No Good about 9 years ago now, which is a growth agency based in New York, where we do AEO as a service for many leading clients as well. So this is sort of a little bit about Goody and maybe some logos that you sort of may or may not be interesting here. But obviously, like we're here because of the search transformation. We're seeing search engine, answer engine, and action engine, sort of like the evolution that we've navigated over the years in 2020 from the early days of I guess Google and Bing, sort of like the obvious stuff that we don't need to state. But 2022 to 2025 is really focused on answer engines from the change in AI overview and that we've seen or sort of like SGE, as Google liked to call it early on, and now AI overview showing for the vast majority of searches, at least the high intent searches, all the way to ChatGPT, obviously Perplexity, AI mode, and everything in between, and all the way down to 2026, where we're seeing sort of like an increase in adoption of just agentic actions in general, but also agentic commerce, as McKinsey predicted, is expected to be a $5 trillion market. So interesting sort of evolutions. Once again, stating the obvious here, but just framing the problem before we jump right in. But what is really the change between AEO and SEO? What's the sort of like the dimension that changed for the most part? I'm a believer, like, again, I know some people call it AEO, some people call it geo, some people call it SEO 3.0. I could care less. I'm not really like personally like married to any of these sort of like terminologies. I think SEO is the foundation of AEO. But I think we can benefit from the new playbook and sort of like the change in the ML pipeline and how people actually experience and navigate search today. So some of these changes is that it's not about the ranking anymore. It's not about the click anymore. It's about the citation, being cited and being mentioned in citation, and then showing up and getting mentioned on AI output, right? So it's not just about the blue links. It's about inside answer. We're not just talking about pages. We're talking about chunks and semantics. Actually, AI pulls from a specific chunk, not just the URL by URL. The signals is not just keywords and backlinks. Now we're talking about entities mentioned, structured data. The corpse is sort of like, we're talking about sort of owned heavy. Your site was the only sort of or the main lever in SEO. Now we're talking about owned, which is your site, but also heavy emphasis, far more than we've ever seen on earned and social, given that they make the vast majority of your citation graph. And we'll look at a little bit of the research in that regard. And then obviously the metrics were more click-based, deterministic. Now we're looking at more probabilistic metrics to complete the picture, because given that AI search is a zero-click experience. So the most valuable channel on the web today is AI search. And given based on many studies, this is one of the ones that we ran. We're seeing sort of like, a leads from AI search converts at 2x. SEMrush study showed it's 8x, other studies for 4x. I have yet to see a single study that doesn't show this as the most important channel on the web today. Someone coming from ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini are more likely to convert at a much higher rate and a much higher average deal value, a much faster velocity in terms of like, pipeline conversions than coming from traditional channel. And obviously this makes sense because given that they already had conversations about your brand and engaged with your websites before they come and take an action. So essentially your site became more or less a destination for the action for some of these leads coming through. This study in particular we did on for B2B SaaS companies, particularly like the SLG motion for B2B SaaS. It was published about a year ago, but we're probably due for a refresh for this study. So another interesting study that we've done also on AI search, and I'm happy to like sort of go from there into like sort of a little bit of the strategy, but an important one, which is analyzing here 1.13 million prompts and associated responses across six AI models. And this is what it produced, what you see here as an AO periodic table. We've been doing this for nearly 2.5 years. This is the fourth edition of it. And you can see here on the left, the impact variables, on the right, the exact AI models. It's published on our site if you want to look at the methodology and the process and sort of how we collected some of these data points and the scores that you see highlighted here in some of these heat maps. It all starts with really content relevance and intent match. I think that's one of the key variables. From there, you go into earned citation and sort of authoritative mention. After that, you get the search and fan out rank, content substance and the variability. Sort of talk about it as the word quality is really hard to define. This is a little bit more specific. Each and every definition here is defined well on the study, and you can see sort of how we're collecting this data. Originality and information gain, EAT and sort of authority. Why are you writing about the things that you're writing about, frankly? And do you have authority on that particular topic that you're covering? Content freshness and recency is also another important component here that we've seen across almost all of these models. Crawl access and render parity, answer first structure and extractability, entity consistency, co-occurrence. Co-occurrence is an important one. Essentially, when you ask AI mode a question and you ask let's say ChatGPT a question, you get an output and you get a bunch of citation. Co-occurrency, essentially, if one citation mentions you, but your competition has 3 or 4 of the citation mention them and in a positive way, but you only have one citation, they have co-occurrency and they're more likely to win visibility. And obviously, if there's no consistency of how you're being mentioned, let's say on your site, you claim to be the best at X and Y, you have another sort of paid citation that says you're also good, but everything on Reddit and YouTube and all of the other sources, typically UGC sources, are saying otherwise. Now there's inconsistency and we're not achieving the co-occurrency that the model likes to see. So really highly recommend that you read the study and ask any questions about it, but it can be a really good framework directionally to help you sort of like understand the new variables that are driving AEO today. We did something similar also for agentic commerce here, and you can see the factor that drives product visibility. A product visibility is different from brand visibility. A product visibility is essentially product cards appearing, whether with an action or not, depending on whether you're enabling the agent commerce framework on and the particular sort of like platform that you're on or model that you're using. But largely for Amazon Rofus, it's sort of like obviously like by default, but for ChatGPT, Perplexity, and AI mode, that has to be the case. But it starts with some of the factors, obviously the structured product data, that's where the model is pulling from. And I'm not going to go through all the factors here, but some other study that you can check out. But essentially what we're trying to say here is that product visibility is not the same as brand visibility, and to appear on the agent of commerce cards with your product and at the right moment, the right time, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to some of these variables and not assume that your brand would just lift that. But which, by the way, brand is a massive factor, but more importantly, you need to make sure that your content, your feed, and your product is agent ready. And this is what a lot of these factors tend to cover here. What are the most influential sources on and domains across AI search? Another very important study that we ran, and you can see here, these are the most influential, most cited domains in AI search today. You can see social is quite high. This is sort of like this study was run end of last year. Some of the refreshes that were run, you see YouTube actually moved to #1, Reddit is #2. So there's more of an updated version that we'll be sharing and announcing soon. But this is sort of like some of the changes that I wanted to be transparent about. But this is also another study that we put out where you're able to see sort of what are the most cited domains on the web today. This is sort of done across industries. And we have the citation panels in the study as well recorded. But you can see a combination of social and obviously publishers that are dominating the citation sort of graph here, as you can see. Interesting one here is that LinkedIn actually been climbing up. Obviously, same with YouTube, as I mentioned, moved to #1. X frankly would not appear here if Grok was not included in the study. X is highly cited by Grok. So there's sort of like some factors that you can look at. This is a screenshot from our product where, some of this data you can find. You're able to like look how people prompt, and essentially from Goody, you're able to see exactly how to find the sort of like the most popular prompts, most popular topics in your space. Similar to keyword research, essentially done within the platform. You're able to see the prompts, the prompt volumes, the topics, the topic volumes, and even the associated domains. What are the domains that are dominating in terms of citation for a particular prompt, which is very important information to define. What are the prompts that you actually should be going after, which I'll explain that in the strategy in a bit. So how do you do AEO? That's obviously the questions why I guess many of us are here. So in my opinion, AEO is one of the most multidisciplinary domains we've seen in marketing so far. It sits at the intersection of sort of SEO or arguably an evolution of SEO, where content and social and PR don't play secondary roles. They actually play a hero role as well in that regard. So it's a multidisciplinary domain, and you can see sort of like authority, trust, reach, and citations are sort of key variables that are driving this. So it's very important to bring all of these teams on the same page as you're approaching AEO, and you understand that you're no longer going to this AI visibility game with just your own content and block, just like maybe you have to go in the SEO space. So this is a little bit of like, another path to understanding AI visibility. This is an example from AI mode. You can see sort of this hierarchy here in terms of like looking at the factors. At the very bottom, you have like content. Essentially, you need content that is worth reading or worth writing, non-commoditized content. That's literally what Google said in their most recent guidelines. So you need non-commoditized content. The model loves that. You need content helpful. You have the experience to write about it, and you have the expertise, and you come from a place of authority, and it's content that can be trusted. And then you have the technical SEOs. The site is crawlable. You have strong performance, indexation, all of the good old technical SEO stuff. It's still very important. That's how the web operates and still valid. Then you have technical AEO focused on essentially agent retrievability and citations. So agent crawlability, render, structured data, LLM text file, robots text file. Or LLM text file is more of secondary here. A robots text file is more primary, but we've yet to see in sort of like a real evidence that LLM text file or agents DM files are actually effective. But and we can talk about that in a second. But robots text file is the one that we should pay more attention to. So you have after technical SEO, you got technical AEO. And above that, you have the sentiment UGC and social signals, essentially how users talk about you on forums like Reddit, both YouTube and others. And then on top of it, your citations I mentioned, whether your own citation, your site, and earned domains, and then co-occurrence. You want more of these two. Essentially, as you can see here, the line on the lines is that how, like at the bottom is how models and agents index and evaluate and crawl your site, which is what I have at the bottom here. And then the three at the top is what the internet says about you. So to AI platforms today, you're no longer who you think you are. You are what the internet says about you, and that's a major shift that defines AEO, and frankly, one of the biggest differentiator between AEO and SEO today. So not all content is cited equally. You got earned, social, and owned. This is sort of as we look at every citation graph that any brand may have. So starting with social content, and we have a few also studies here to show you. This is the study that we ran recently, looking at brands that are optimizing for social search, or frankly, like encouraging brands to optimize for social search, to be precise. So here, looking at the social citations compared to other citation sources, and you can see social citation, frankly, like have grown 4x in at the beginning, end of last year. I would say like we measured in this study 5 months, and then actually more recently we can see the continuation of growth. We have a study that will be published soon that covers that as well. It's about 7% of your citation graph today. It's 2.3x more than your own citation. So social is more impactful than your own site as far as AI search citation goes, right? So to win AI search, one of the key foundation is winning social here, and how the places like YouTube, Reddit, X, and LinkedIn, Substack, Mediums, and others talk about you to various degree. I think the more important ones here is the one that I listed here. It's YouTube, is now the most cited domain, followed by Reddit, X, LinkedIn. Not all of them are of equal weight, different weights for different industries. But it's very important to know that, for some brands, YouTube is literally like defines 5 or 6% of their entire total citation graph. So every time someone asks about any question related to their market, YouTube ends up showing up as a source. So a very important sort of source to pay attention to and understand the shift in. And it makes sense because without social, these LLMs lack human consensus. These LLMs lack recency. These LLM, frankly, lack taste and understanding of how people are evaluating these set of choices today. And raw conversations or data that are coming with engagement, like we see on Reddit, is an incredibly valuable source. And obviously, there's another aspect at play here, which is platform coupling. How Gemini relies heavily on YouTube and ChatGPT relies heavily on Reddit, and that's based on content licensing, partnerships, and other factors as well. So you can see here, YouTube long form is 51x or 51-to-1 ratio to YouTube Shorts. So it's not just about the domain; it's also about the content type. So we broke this study down by content types and looked at what are the most cited content types on AI search today as it relates to social. You can see YouTube long form, followed by Reddit, X. LinkedIn articles is actually incredibly popular. Not LinkedIn posts or all of these posts that we're making are not getting as much as cited as these LinkedIn articles that we ignored for far too long, right? So that's another sort of aspect of the study that I think is very worth mentioning, and highly encourage you to go and download some of these studies and learn more about sort of like, how AI search is shaping up visibility today. Platform coupling, which is a very important concept. We're first to talk about this concept where you look at AI search and each and every platform, AI platform at large, is highly biased to the content that they have access to. So Grok is citing X quite heavily, followed by Reddit, AI overview, YouTube, Gemini, YouTube. So you can see that obviously Google will be citing YouTube and relying on YouTube more, followed by LinkedIn and Reddit. Reddit tends to be present across all of them. One important thing here as well, I think you get the point around platform coupling, but before I move on, one very important thing here, being the most cited domain does not mean it's the most cited domain for every brand or for me. A lot of the time, most cited domains means that they have the most coverage for any topics. So when you zoom in by specific industry, you'll find that a lot of niche sort of like domains or specific publishers tend to win the citation in that categories, and Reddit tends to take like a secondary role. So if you look, for example, on fintech, you will see like NerdWallet and the Points guy or any of these sites are actually are being cited more than Reddit for some brands. So it's being the most cited in general across the web does not always equal the most important to you. So it's very important to understand your own citation graph, which is why tooling and technology like the one we've built is vastly important. So earned content strategy is also another massive lever. So this is still the foundation for any AO strategy, but it's very important to understand where it sits, right? So where most search teams invested their time back in the day was around owned. Owned represented almost 78%, if not more. This is based on some surveys that we already ran on this area, but you also can see earned. We used to spend quite a bit of time on it because it was also important for link building. And obviously, like, to the various degrees, some companies might have done this at 90%, other companies that might have this at 50%. But this is sort of asking a bunch of CMOs and getting a sense of sort of where they spend their time. But where AI answers are pulling from today is not matching where we spend most of our time. You can see earned is 75%, social is 20%, owned is 5%. And again, this is sort of like now this is biased. This data is biased to the customer base, how many the influence of each and every citation graph, each and every citation source is impacting here by the larger citation graph that you have in your customer base. But across the board, every platform represented more than 75% for earned. Once again, you're no longer who you think you are what the internet says about you. So earned and social are far more impactful and cited a lot more than your own site. So it's a very important distinction, sort of how time is allocated. In reality, we have a lot more levers with our own site. An important distinction here is that high intent prompt and information prompt about your own brand, we see a massive jump here. Your site actually ends up jumping because it becomes a source of truth. So that 5% cannot be ignored. That's the most important 5% in this pack. But I also wanted to get you a sense of how AI search gets the answer and the value of earned and social. While owned, I'm not saying it's not as important anymore. I'm just saying that it's a different game that is it's a multi-dimensional game. As I said earlier, you need to make sure that your earned team and social team are part of the squad of driving this chain and not just on the back of technical SEO or the back of technical AEO. And this is why it's one of the more strategic initiatives that typically directors of marketing, CMOs, and sometimes SEO teams end up leading. But it's very important that they can drive as much impact without earned and social in today's AI search world. And then the shift from traditional PR to digital PR, or digital, I guess, PR for AEO, you can see here, it's no longer just about link building, it's about citations and mentions, authentic mentions. And you want to make sure that you're being a source where there's a high intent conversations that LLMs are pulling from. These are some sort of breakdown of how to help sort of drive your earned citation and being mentioned on these earned sources, whether digital PR, partnerships, community. And you have a bunch of examples here that we've written quite extensively on, and I'm sure that many people here are very familiar with already. But you want to make sure that obviously there are important review sites, conversations that are happening on various forums that are very specific to your domain. In beauty, for example, like Sephora has a beauty forum that is highly cited. Very important to understand how your brand is cited there. If you're in SaaS, you want to make sure that all of these SaaS review sites, you're present there. AI search often pulls from them, and understand which one is actually being cited and which one is not. Partnerships, community, obviously these are matter, and this is sort of where overlap happens with social, which I talked about earlier here today. So I know we don't have a lot of time, and I'm rushing through this, so I want to make sure that I'm also slowing down and taking some questions, if any. I see.
Vincent did ask if you could talk a little bit about the Goody study process. A little.
Yes, absolutely. We actually do have each and every study has a whole section. I think each and every study has a different method, so I'm not sure which study exactly, Vincent. But I'm happy to send you the exact study. You have about 35 pages. And if you have any comments, questions, we'll tell you when the data is causal or correlational or directional. And a lot of these studies, sort of like the data sets, are quite transparent as well. So it just depends which study. The AI search and social study is just an analysis of the social graph across millions of citations collected across industries. For the AO periodic table, definitely, obviously a different method. So it depends on the exact study that you're referring to. I think I referenced about 6 or 7 studies so far. So let me know which one, and I'm happy to send you the links for all of them and nerd out on what would be the next study you would like us to double down on. Awesome. All right. So owned content strategy for AI search. This is we talked about this earlier, but I want to go into a little bit more details here. Own content types for the high citation potential start with original data studies. It's one of the reasons why we create studies. So this is Vincent. I appreciate questions, and this is one of the reasons why every brand should be looking at the competitive advantage that they have, the unique data that they have, and how can they create a white paper, a study. And obviously, it doesn't have to have the label a study or a white paper, but like unique content. Because a lot of the time we have also directional content when we say, you know what, the data that we have is not enough, but directionally helpful. Here's something unique that we have. So not every study has to be require a data scientist, but make sure that you lean on the unique advantage, unique content that you can offer to the industry and the domain of expertise that you specialize in. Expert POV, very important. Why you write about what you write and why I need to hear it from you specifically. Did you earn the street creds before you write about this? Essentially, that's what AI is trying to figure out, right? Comprehensive how-to guides are still very helpful. I would argue less helpful than they used to, but they're helpful, especially when you have it's comprehensive and you have a unique angle, and the expert POV is very present. Essentially, like the authority is there for you to be writing this guide. Comparison content is still very helpful. Listicle is still very helpful as well, but I think it's on its way out rather than in. But obviously, like sort of, we're also seeing a bunch of companies create listicles, and AI will be pulling your competition and leaving you out, given the clear conflict of interest in some of these listicles. So being as transparent with these listicles and using them as a place for curation rather than anything else is incredibly helpful. Case studies with real numbers, reviews, and quotes is sort of verifiable performance metrics are really helpful. And case studies where you're explaining the problem, the solution, exactly what you've done is good evidence and is helpful content, especially for mid and bottom funnel. These are some examples of non-commoditized content that you should be creating more of. This is sort of, we have some tips on content strategy, but I want to skip to semantic chunking because I think it's an important concept. And also, like, I have a few other slides that I want to get to regarding to technical AEO and measurement as well. So semantic chunking is essentially like, you want to make sure that your content is structured for AI in a way that is actually truly helpful for these agents as they pull the content. So you want to make sure that you're not just writing a bunch of, it's just a flow of information and letting AI struggle to find the part that matters to the answer to the query that or the prompt that a user gave to you. So a lot of the time, sort of like just using good old structure. I really think this one is just more of an obvious one because I think this was a recommendation for SEO. I don't think there's much to change here. It's also the recommendation for good old writing. You want to make sure that there's a skimmer, make sure that the skimmer is also served as much as a real sort of meticulous reader. So I think it's a very important component here. So make sure that you're breaking down your content in ways that are digestible to both humans and agents. So again, use bullet points, number steps, frame H1, subheaders, and use the language that people would use in prompts, or be as clear as in concise with the language that describes each and every section. Site architecture for AI comprehensions, you obviously want to make sure that your URL structure, internal linking, site map, hygiene, all of that is in a good place. Once again, good old SEO, you can still see it's still relevant, still helpful for us here. And we've seen quite a bit of impact when we do that. This is also an important point. This is where LLM text file can be helpful, or agents MD files can be helpful. With large sites, think of LLM text files as the README files or the documentation. Every large code base, for any engineers here, every large code base requires documentation. Every new features require README or a documentation. Think of it as an LLM text file as README files for agents. Hey, check out this file as you're about to navigate this big and messy site. I'm going to tell you a bunch of things that are important before you go and crawl every single page. There's crawl budget, there's obviously token limitations, and these agents don't just have unlimited budget to go or unlimited time to go and understand your site. So this is where LLM text file makes sense on paper. We don't have any data to prove otherwise. I know I've seen a bunch of studies out there. It's frankly, we tried, and I think it's a really hard study to really get empirical evidence on, but we have some directional data that's largely helpful. But again, I just don't have enough confidence to be saying one way or the other. But I think it makes sense in my opinion, and I think that's confirmed by a lot of the other, frankly, like people in the space. We've seen the chief product officer at OpenAI at some point reference that LLM text file are increasing in popularity and can be largely helpful for LLMs. But we're also seeing Google saying that it's not important. So these are things that the jury's still out, and let's pay more attention to. And that's my POV. Cool. So AO measurement and reporting. Before I jump here, I want to see if I have any questions.
Vincent asks what would be some good first steps for someone just entering AEO as a strategy.
That's a great question. I think a roadmap is a hard question. I think I don't want I want to start with curiosity first, understanding what are the conversations that matters to you, getting the citation graph for these conversations, understanding where influence is for these conversations, and from there you start laying out your map or roadmap based on the gaps and the opportunities that you have, or the risks that you have. So what are the gaps? Narrative gaps, citation gaps, where your competition is winning and where you're not. Just like we used to do with sort of keyword research, lay of the land, you need to understand your citation graph, which is where influence is driven from, or where AI visibility is largely driven from. and you want to make sure that you understand that clearly, because it's a precision game, not a volume game, in my opinion. So, and from there, you want to lay out where the opportunity to be mentioned or an opportunity to create new content. The goal is to always be the source, replace the source, or get mentioned. And once again, it's citation, not clicks, citations, not links. So those are the ones that we're chasing. So Ali says, what recent shift in AO Geo that you are most excited about? I really think the rise of social is an important one. The rise of social as a retrieval infrastructure or architecture for AI in general. Just frankly, like just without it, it makes a lot of sense. Without it, LLMs would just become vanilla and not really helpful. So it's very important for these LLMs to continue to rely on social. And now all of these social creators and people that are working in the world of social now have two audience. They have humans, which obviously the larger audience, but also Asians behaving like humans. So now you have all of these Asians feeding off of that content. So that creates a whole new dimension for social and a whole new dimension for SEO and AEO. So really exciting area to sort of explore and explore more. I really think also like measurement and what makes the most sense in AI search, like how to measure the impact of AI search, and is also another really interesting one. Speaking of which, though, we have here AI measurement, and you can see sort of like some probabilistic metrics of it. So generally, we have deterministic, which is click-based metrics like clicks, search, like essentially how many people came from ChatGPT or Claude based on clicks. But we also have essentially probabilistic metrics, essentially out of the 10,000 prompts that you ran and outputs of these prompts, how many times you were mentioned, what's your share of voice, how many times your competition was mentioned, what is the citation graph, etc. Those are very important sort of metrics to understand, given that it's a probabilistic layer, not a deterministic layer, and you want to make sure that you're collecting this data methodically. And this is sort of where proud to have built sort of one of the most transparent and sort of like measurement layers and monitoring layer in the space, and we're doing this for many of the leading brands. And we want to make sure that we also don't do this based on 1,000 prompts or an existing panel of data that is retrofitted for AEO. We do this accounting for persona, country, language models, etc. So very important layer to measure, and obviously like you want to make sure that you understand the zero-click reality, the probabilistic gap that we have, and how to close that dark traffic problem with sort of proper AEO measurement. And I think essentially I explained about the probabilistic and deterministic. So you got the click-based, you got the deterministic, which is probabilistic, and or probabilistic, which is essentially visibility, share of voice, and deterministic, which is referral traffic, revenue per visit, impressions even, if you can get that from Search Console or Bing Webmaster, right? And then the goal is to like really build a closed loop AEO. You want to make sure that you understand the prompt, which is research. You want to be able to monitor the prompts that matters and the conversation that matters, identify gaps and act on these gaps, and take actions, intentional, thoughtful actions around closing some of these gaps, whether on your own site, social, or earned, and then prove downstream impact through tying things back to revenue. And you want to make sure that obviously you want to have a full stack tool that is able to do that end to end, connecting all of these tools where pulling data from Search Console, GA4, Bing Webmaster, triangulation, or proving how did you find us. People essentially tell you how you find us, because once again, AI search is zero-click in nature, but GA4 is just going to track clicks, and clicks is not what we're after, is not what matters. In fact, clicks are drying out faster than anything I've seen on the internet today, and that explains the decline probably of organic traffic that most brands are experiencing today. This is sort of an example of how we do that on our site, and sort of like you can see, the platform. If you go on the site, you're able to measure and track all of this effectively, or use it, connect it to Claude, and get any of the questions that you need to answer. We use any of our multi-agents to help you precisely close any of these gaps. So enough about the platform, enough about AEO. I took longer than I promised. Thank you for your time. This is sort of my LinkedIn, Twitter, if you want to reach out, my email directly if you have any questions. I want to pause and see if there are any questions I didn't answer. Let's see. Great question. I think, Vincent, I appreciate obviously your engagement, but also like the question is incredibly valid here. We typically works with a lot of startups and enterprises. And I would say we help startups and enterprises through the research that we put out, but also more importantly, we give them a technology that is able to help close the loop, understand how essentially how your customers are having conversation about your market, about your brand today. What are the conversation that matters most to you that are making AI decide on your visibility or the lack of, and what action you need to take in order to be visible and measure the impact of that action, help you even take that action within the platform, help you automate that action, whether create net new content, automate the content, review your robots text file, technical, non-technical, all of these actions are covered in the platform. And lastly, tying things back to revenue, to metric that matters. So full loop, from research, monitor, action to revenue attribution. Hopefully that's helpful enough for small businesses. We have many small businesses that are actively winning with our platform, whether agencies and then D2C brands and B2B SaaS and many others are actively winning in AI search and taking advantage of a new shelf that is where there is a true arbitrage today, and many companies are actively winning. Awesome. So thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate the time, and see you soon in another one of these lessons.